Okay, I've really been looking forward to this podcast. You know, if you're a fan of the podcast or a fan of Personal Edge, you know my mantra, and that is that the ridiculous concept of time passing on a calendar is an absolute lie. And if you approach a patient or approach a client and you have that ingrained in your brain that time causes deterioration, well, you're not going to help that client or patient as much as you could if you understood the cornerstone of that, which is the body has an ability to do what no other machine can do, and that is it has the ability to heal itself. Well, did you know there is a study of medicine that is dedicated to that particular same cornerstone, and it's been around since the 1800s. We're talking today to Dr. Paul Langevin of Star Valley Osteopathy about osteopathic medicine today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Williamson, president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out this podcast on osteopathic medicine and with my guest who I'll introduce in just a minute. But I want to tell you how to get in touch with the show if you have any questions about this podcast or any others, or if you have any questions for Katie. We have that segment coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you have any more questions for Katie, please submit them to us. And as always, if you just have questions about dispelling myths of health, fitness, and wellness, please contact me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com, which, of course, is my email address. It's also our website, personaledgefitness.com, and our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at TeamPE if you're so inclined. Looking forward to getting into this topic because it's something that most people don't know very much about, and I know enough about it to be dangerous, which is why I have an expert with me today, and that is Dr. Paul Langevin of two clinics, actually, the osteopathy clinic both in Star Valley, Wyoming, and also one in Jackson Hole. Dr. Langevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being on with us, and actually to clear up a lot of confusion, the misconfusion, that's a bit redundant. A lot of confusion about osteopathic medicine. First, tell us a little bit about yourself, and because you have a very interesting background.
It is a little convoluted, and I even as a physician, I don't have a standard background. So where to begin? It's really a loaded question. So after high school, I went straight in the Navy. I was enlisted in the Navy for 4 years.
Right.
And I did that for 4 years. I was on a destroyer out of San Diego. This was back in the 80s. And then I got out and did construction for a bit. A summer of roofing in Maine convinced me I needed to start college. And so
I understand that would.
Yeah. People don't realize Maine is actually quite humid and hot. So, and so after that, I started college and then transferred to Oklahoma because New England is very expensive and Oklahoma was a lot more reasonable. And my brother was living there at the time.
Right.
And then my now wife was my girlfriend back then, and I was working as a chemist for a bit. And somebody told me to take the MCATs, and I barely knew what the MCATs were for, so I took the MCATs, scored very well, and I had no plans of going into medicine. And then when I realized it was $150 or $200 just to apply to a medical school, I was like, well, I'm not going to apply to, I'm just going to apply to one and see what happens.
Right.
And so OU, University of Oklahoma, had the MD school. Oklahoma State University had the DO school.
Right.
And so, well, what's the DO? And so I read up a little bit on the DO. They do medicine. They can get into any specialty, but they also do this manipulation. I'm like, wow, that sounds cool.
Right.
I'd never been to a DO, knew nothing about it. So I just applied to that one because I didn't want to spend money to apply to two schools.
Makes sense.
And so, so I applied to it, got in, and little unknown fact is I never finished my undergrad. So I don't have an undergraduate degree. I got accepted to the school. And so at the time I had a high school diploma and a medical degree.
Oh,
so,
wow. Interesting combination.
Yeah. So, because back then you didn't really need it. My scores were very high.
Yeah.
They just, and I called them up when I got my acceptance letter. Hey, I have another year of undergrad. And they're like, well, we accepted you. We don't care what you do.
Okay.
So, so, and then since I was kind of frugal, well, Jen was frugal. I wasn't frugal.
Right.
But Jen, my wife.
Yes.
So I went ahead and applied for a Navy scholarship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so
that took you back into the military then? It
took me back in the military, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it did.
And you went full time with that?
School.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. So, so I did the DO school thing. Then I did, and then after you graduate, you take the oath and you're an officer.
Right.
And then I went off to Camp Pendleton Naval Hospital, and I did an internship.
Right.
And I didn't want to continue residency right away since I was in the Navy. I wanted to go do something really cool. So I was a flight surgeon.
Oh,
and
awesome.
so that's a 6-month training in Pensacola.
Right.
And then you get assigned to a squadron.
Okay.
And so we had the arduous duty of being a flight surgeon for a helicopter squadron in Sicily, Italy.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. You're just not going to get these opportunities anywhere else.
No, that's true. That's true.
So I did that time, did my payback for my scholarship while I was at the squadron. And then we got out and moved to Wyoming to finish training and then just live life. And I was an ER doctor for 5-6 years.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I just traveled around the state working in various ERs.
Right.
And then kind of got bored with that. So we went back in the Navy in 2011. We were living in Casper, Wyoming. We sold that house and we bought a house in Star Valley, Wyoming. It's a little slice of heaven in western Wyoming on the Idaho border.
Know it well.
And then we went to Hawaii. I was with Marine Infantry for 3.5 years.
Italy, Hawaii, yeah. You did a little bit of traveling here.
Yeah. And then I went back to training in Pensacola, but I was stationed in Pensacola, but Jen wanted to go to nursing school, so she went to USA in Mobile, and so we lived in Fairhope.
Yeah.
Which is, our little slice of heaven down south.
Right.
Fairhope is just such a great place. And so I did 3 years in Pensacola doing training in aerospace medicine and occupational medicine. And then I got assigned as the senior medical officer on board the USS Nimitz.
Wow.
And
what type of ship is that? I know the Nimitz, but I'm not sure the classification.
So it's a aircraft carrier. It's the first of its kind. It's a nuclear powered aircraft carrier.
Amazing.
And all aircraft carriers except for the Ford class are based off the USS Nimitz.
Okay.
And I did that for 3 years. It was normally a 2-year job, but I extended for a year. And then I transferred to Whidbey Island, and I was what's called, I was a senior regional flight surgeon, meaning that for the entire Pacific Northwest, if there's a flight surgery issue or things that need to be taken care of, I took care of them.
Oh, wow.
And I was up on Whidbey Island, and we have 2 wings up there. One is the F-18 Growler squadrons. They're the electronic attack, and then the P-8s. They are the maritime patrol. They hunt submarines from 737s.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And I had 15 flight surgeons that worked for me. Man. And they were all over the world. They were deployed. One was in Germany. They could be in Sicily. I mean, they're all over the world, and kind of manage those. Right. Try to herd those kittens. So, I'm sure. And then last year I retired from the Navy. I got a promotion, but I felt my time in the Navy was done, so I turned down the promotion and then put in my papers, retired. We moved back to Star Valley, right? And I opened my practices in November.
At the end of what you just told me about your military career, which is impeccable, and I'm sure you get this because I know that especially in Wyoming, you're loaded with patriots out there. But I'm going to add to it, and that is, as always, thank you very much for your service. We greatly appreciate it. But usually at the end of that long a description, and then I retired, and that's it. That's the end of it. But you started basically a second career. And before I go on, I want to always like to point out that there's something I did not know. I did not know you were a flight surgeon, and that's something near and dear to my heart. My father was a flight surgeon. Now he was in Air Force, but he was a flight surgeon, and extremely proud of it to the day of his passing. So, but you started really a second career, and which is something actually you'd been practicing, obviously, but you got into, you went to school for this, and this is something I want you to tell us a little bit about, and that is that what is osteopathic medicine? Tell us about that.
So, DOs are fully licensed physicians, like MDs. We can get into any specialty, we can do surgery, we prescribe medications. A lot of people don't know about DOs because we are a minority.
Right.
I don't know what the exact numbers are, but in the civilian population, we make up about 5, 6, maybe 7% of the physician population.
Wow.
It's a 4-year medical school,
right,
like MDs.
Right.
And in the military, DOs make up about 15%.
Okay.
So we make up a higher percentage in the military, and that's a post-Vietnam phenomenon.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, and after Vietnam, the military just hemorrhaged physicians. People were leaving left and right as quickly as possible. So they needed to refill those ranks.
Right.
And so for many years, DOs were looking for full licensure, full ability to practice medicine
opportunities.
And I can't remember the year. I think it was 75 or 76 that the DoD allowed DOs to become physicians, and so they kind of filled that vacuum that was created from Vietnam.
Right.
And so that's why we're a higher percentage of physicians in the military than the civilian.
Sure. And
so,
and it's funny, but the way you approach medicine is to me seems drastically different, or very different than an MD would approach it. Am I right about that, or am I making the wrong generalization?
Generally, the training is different.
Okay.
So let me go back to the beginning.
Sure.
So osteopathic medicine was developed by a Civil War physician, Andrew Taylor Still.
Okay.
He was out of Missouri,
right,
and he was an MD.
Okay.
And so after the war, he relocated back home to Missouri, and his wife and 4 or 5 of his 7 or 9 children, I don't know the exact numbers here, died of cholera one year.
Wow.
And so being a physician, he was like, if my family is dying, then everybody else's family is even worse.
Yeah, definitely.
And so he started thinking about how they're doing medicine. Remember, this is the 1860s and 70s. So amputation, arsenic, bloodletting, opium for a cough. So
amazing. So we've come a long way.
we have come a long way. So he really started working on if the body is working appropriately, it should heal itself. And so he found that people that are sick had some physical manifestation of that sickness, whether it's through the musculoskeletal system, the fascia, the nervous system. And he felt if you if you correct those abnormalities in the body, it should be able to heal itself better.
Right.
And so he developed this over a couple decades. And what he really wanted to do was bring this to the ND world and have them start doing it.
Sure. No, that is what I see as the cornerstone of osteopathy is the body's ability to heal itself. Yes,
it is. It is the second tenet of osteopathic medicine. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. I didn't realize that, but I knew that was a important factor of it. I'm gonna circle back to that in a second because of what we preach and what have you. But I didn't mean to interrupt there. But
no, that's fine. Yeah. And then the MDs soundly rejected him. So he he did what the Clampists did. He packed up everything and moved to Kirksville, Missouri.
Right.
And he started his own school.
Okay.
So it was the American College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Interesting.
And it opened its doors, I believe, in 1892.
Wow.
So this is body work and medicine. And he had a hospital there, or they called them sanatoriums back then.
Right.
And so he had medical students, and usually were small classes, 10, 12 people.
Wow.
What people don't understand is that this predates chiropractors. Palmer did not report his, and that's the guy that founded chiropractic.
Right.
Palmer didn't report his first working on somebody until 1895.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Well,
and
go ahead.
And still had been working out this osteopathic thing that that was kind of, it was an obsession.
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
So he'd been working on this since the late 1860s, 1870s.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I know that, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but I know that there was like when you said that Dr. Still originally wanted to go and approach the MDs about it, and they clearly rejected it. And I know there's been some friction there, but fast forward to this is 2023. And this is a vastly different environment now. I mean, you're saying, I'm seeing more and more DOs in this area that are affiliated with hospitals it's becoming much more, I don't want to say accepted, I'm going to say understood a practice as far as that goes. So, but I want to go back to, if you don't mind, this second tenet. And the reason I find that so important is it's something we talk about all the time. I talk about the fact that the body is the most amazing machine you will ever encounter. And I'm curious if you agree with this. I'd say that we've been studying it. I always say we've been studying it since the late 1500s, because I think that was the first actual autopsy. And we still don't know everything about it. Am I right about that?
Oh, yes. I think we're still scratching the surface.
Right, exactly.
And
exactly.
It's so complex and so wondrous.
Very much
I think and I don't want to downgrade what NDs and DOs have done. We've done some amazing
not by
things.
any means, no.
We open up the chest, we take out one heart, we put in another.
It's pretty amazing.
I mean, it's just, it's phenomenal.
Right. But we're dealing with the machine. We're dealing with the machine, and it's the only machine that I know of, unless you can think of something. I mean, you've been around a lot bigger machines than I have, but it's the only machine that I know of that has the ability to repair itself. I mean, what do I do for a living? I tell this all the time on the podcast. I tear muscle fiber. I mean, that's what I do. People come in here and pay me because they want me to tear their muscle fiber, because I'm telling the body basically wrong, do it again, and the body rebuilds it, makes it stronger. I mean, that's the only machine I know that has the ability to, even with AI out there, it's the only machine I know that has the ability to do that. Am I correct?
Oh, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that really has become very ingrained in people's psyche is, well, I have a lot of wear and tear.
Right.
No, you don't have a lot of wear and tear. Your body can correct itself.
Period.
You've been doing something wrong for a long time, and that hurts.
Bingo.
But it can repair itself, and nothing else can do that.
Right.
Our bodies are designed to do that.
Right.
So what you see a lot is this myth that, well, if you run, your knees are going to go bad, your back's going to go bad. That's it's absolute false.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sitting here, those of you who are watching me on social media, I'm speaking, of course, Dr. Langevin on the phone here, and he can't see this at the moment. He'll see this when he sees the podcast, but I'm sitting here throwing my arms up in the air as he says that, that people believe that when you run, that your just knee's going to go bad, that's it. It's almost like you've got a deadline to your running, and it's funny, I just did a podcast recently on this and had the same reaction. That is absolute false. That is not something that happens to you. It's something that we make happen to ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Like when I was in medical school, there was this elegant, just beautifully done study, and it was small. And of course, there's no pharmaceuticals involved, so it's not going to get a lot of attention. But it was done in Montreal, Canada. A radiologist who is an avid runner wanted to answer this question. So he took healthy runners who have been running at least 20 years. And then he aged matched, sex matched, and health matched as far as no medical issues, no issue, you know.
Right.
And he x-rayed the controls and the runner's knees.
Right.
And he found that the runners who had been running 20 plus years had better gapping, less osteoarthritis.
Wow.
And it wasn't a big study. It was a small study. I think there was maybe 20 participants, but he showed a statistical significance
Sure.
that there was less knee issues in runners than in their matched controls.
Wow.
It was a beautifully done study.
I'm
small,
sure.
and it was like a footnote in a journal, but it was beautiful.
Right.
Well,
I have to be careful here, and the reason being because I'll go off. There's some other things I want to talk to you about your practice, but to kind of bring this whole thing to a point. The reason I'm so excited to hear you say this and talk about this, and this is why I really like the DO approach, and that is that there's a mantra, and my fans of the podcast know that I talk about this all the time. It's pretty well. I feel it's the reason I was put on this earth, and that is what I call the lie of age, the ridiculous, absurd idea that we deteriorate simply because time passes on the calendar. And actually, I've always argued that there are four different things that actually dictate ability. They're fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and the absolute most important, which is mindset. Because if you believe you're going to fail, not a whole lot I can do for you. And all four of those are 100% controllable. Now, whether you fully agree with that or not, that remains to be seen. But this is what I'm talking about right here. We're talking about what you just mentioned a minute ago, and that is, like when we were talking about runners' knees. These things don't happen to us. We make them happen to us. We actually, as I've said, age doesn't happen to us. We happen to age. And and that's why I think I love the fact that you talked about that study, because I think that's exactly what they're proving there.
Oh yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. It's and I completely agree with that concept.
Yeah.
The diagnosis, or not the diagnosis, but the concept of sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, which you talk about frequently, is based on 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s concept of aging gracefully, not being active. You're a grandparent. You should just tote around the house, do some stuff, and wait for your grandchildren to visit you for Christmas. And that's absolute false.
I mean, it's so absurd. I mean, we start with the notion, okay, everybody needs to swallow this pill and just believe it. Time next year, you're going to be worse off. Okay, everybody believe that. There's not one single clinical study on the face of the earth that proves that, but everybody just believe it. Now, let's start from there and see if we can help you. I think that's an absurd way to approach healing anybody, no matter what the practice is. But okay, and before you and I will spend all day on this, because I know we're of the same mind on it. But what do people come to you for, though? I mean, I know that what are the big things that you see? I mean, I know that there's some big ideas, there's big concepts that people seek out osteopathic medicine for. And so, what do you see in your practice?
So like most, my bread and butter is back pain.
Okay.
Whether it's low back pain, mid back pain, neck pain, that's going to be the most common one.
Sure.
Then any kind of like extremity pain. Probably the next one would be shoulder and hips would be the big ones.
Joint related stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then headaches are huge.
Right.
TMJ.
Wow.
Foot pain.
Sure.
And then we start kind of getting into the smaller stuff. Like I had one gentleman come in and he goes, "This one thumb." Okay. Let's work on this one thumb. And he left very happy because he had his grip strength and his thumb didn't hurt anymore when he grabbed stuff.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and what you're talking about there, first and foremost, is pain, and boy, that gets everybody's attention. You know, as it's been said many times, I know a lot of people agree with this. I don't go to a doctor unless I have a problem, and pain will certainly send you to go get help. But that's also got to. I always say that people not only go for pain, they go for limited ability. You know, when their abilities are limited, that's when they'll typically seek help. I'm sure you see a lot of that.
Oh yes, yeah, and once because people really don't know what I do. And so they're kind of coming in questioning, well, I have this issue, can you help it? And so I had this one young gentleman come in, and he's been having low back pain.
Right.
He works kind of a physical job at the airport in Jackson.
Sure.
And so we took care of his back. I mean, within 10 minutes,
Right.
he was touching his toes again. He was moving freely. He's like, wow,
Man.
this is awesome.
Yeah.
And he's an avid rock climber, so he's very, very fit. He likes to work out all winter long just to be in shape to make sure he can go rock climb.
Sure. Okay.
And so he goes, well, my shoulders are a little tight. They're not quite moving right. They don't hurt. And so we worked on his shoulders and his mid-back and his neck because it's all connected.
Yeah,
and
of course.
He suddenly had this free. So it's also performance.
Right.
So whether it's a dance performance, whether it's a physical activity you want to do, skiing, snowboarding, climbing, whatever it is,
Right.
it also helps kind of, because when people train specifically for an event,
Yes.
as opposed to just general conditioning,
Right.
and they're pretty intense with it, they're going to introduce these little micro traumas throughout their system.
Sure. Sure.
Or they may overwork one thing because they're not doing it appropriately.
Right, and
so
cause an imbalance, which is going to cause a pain elsewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Or maybe not even a pain, just okay, well, this aspect of my training, okay, because everybody wants to do pull-ups when they climb, right?
Right.
So they tend to overwork one range, but when they need to do chin-ups, they're not as strong because they've overbalanced one side over the other.
Right. Exactly.
So by removing those limitations and kind of helping them correct those exercises.
Right.
And here's the thing that I always tell my patients: the last person you want to talk to nutrition or exercise is a physician.
True. Exactly. I have to agree with you. Yeah, exactly.
Physicians get trained in disease and surgery, and they're very good at it, and they've advanced. I mean, as we talked about, replacing a heart in somebody's body. Come on.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's the same, in the same breath, the last person you want to talk to about surgery is a personal trainer. I mean, I can talk to you about rehabbing afterwards. I can talk to you about doing prehab prior to. I can talk about, and everything physical around it. But don't talk to me about surgery because I'm not trained in surgery. Just like physicians aren't trained in exercise, they aren't trained in nutrition. But on that note, we kind of dabbled into something here as far as surgery is concerned. That's where I think a lot of people find that that's the ultimate. That's got to be the answer. But you say that's not so.
No, it's not so. And just in my practice alone, I see a lot of people. Well, I had my MRI, which that's a whole different topic,
right,
by itself.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about going and seeing a spine surgeon.
Sure.
Okay. What are you going to see them for? Oh, my back pain. Okay. Spine surgery is to correct neurological compromises within the spine.
Right.
So that's not back pain. That is something else.
Right.
You have numbness, tingling going down your legs. You have pain shooting down your legs, or the extreme is you have muscle loss, you have dysfunction and loss of like a reflex.
Right. Okay.
That is an indication for spine surgery.
Right.
So the surgeon is going to go in there, correct that, and those symptoms will go away.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what you're going to have after surgery? You're going to have back pain.
Right.
So, and that was my story in 2014. I had severe pain in my left leg. Mm-hmm. My Achilles tendon, you know how they do the little reflex test down there?
Yeah, definitely.
That was completely absent on the left side.
Oh, wow.
And so, and then my left calf kind of shriveled up a little bit, and the surgeon went in there, removed a huge piece of disc material that was pressing up against L5S1.
Right.
And all the pain went away, the numbness, tingling went away.
Right.
The calf hasn't returned, so my running days are over. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got into powerlifting.
Right.
And my back pain was still there.
Mm.
So that's one of the things that people don't understand. Surgery will not take care of that issue that you're complaining of.
Right.
It's useful if there's a hip replacement or a knee replacement, most of the time, not all the time. Remember, this is what I tell my patients. The first doctor that promises you an outcome is the doctor you walk away from.
Interesting. Yeah.
So they're going to try their best, but not everybody's going to have the same outcome. That's the thing that people have to look at.
Right.
And somebody will say,
different
well, my
bodies are
neighbor
going to
had
respond
a,
differently. I mean, different bodies are going to respond differently. It's the same thing we tell our clients when they come in about they're coming post a surgery that we've seen before, or a particular condition we've seen before. I mean, one of the number one things we see is rotator cuff damage, and they'll come in and tell us what's wrong with that. They'll come in and tell us, I just came out of an ACL repair, and we'll tell them the same thing. Give us permission to talk to either your physician or in most cases their physical therapist. And the reason being, we haven't seen their ACL tear. We haven't seen their ACL repair. It's going to be different. No matter what, something about it is going to be different. And you're seeing the same thing. You've got back pain in this area. It's probably on this joint. You've seen it 1,000 times before, but you have not seen this one. And because everybody's going to heal different, everybody's going to present different.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
well, I'd caution folks, and I've got the situation happening right now with the client that I'm working with. We have constant hip pain. We still can't figure out what it is. He's been to a surgeon. He's had X-rays done, what have you. Still can't figure out what it is. And we've done simple evaluations here. And this is why I'm encouraging him to see somebody like you, because there's something going on there. We know that for a fact, and there's got to be an answer, and most likely it can be corrected. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And his problem, and I'm going to say this over the phone, not saying him.
Yes.
Because I've been doing this for over 26 years.
Right.
His problem is in his fascia. The fascia has some sort of derangement in it.
Right.
That's causing some sort of abnormal movements.
Sure.
Or dysfunction in it,
right?
And that's where his pain's coming from.
And I appreciate you telling me that. Definitely. So, and of course, that's not seeing him, but that's a whole nother route. Actually, I hate to tell you this. I've not had him see him on my ATCs. We probably would have brought that up, but that's not something I've thought about, and something we definitely will address with him. So I just made a note about it, so to see about that. So, well, tell us about if somebody's wanting to come see you. Tell us about where you're located and how to get in touch with you.
So it's very easy. So my practice is not your typical doctor's practice. It's a micro practice. It is literally just me. I don't have staff.
Sure.
It's me in a one room at both my locations.
Right.
So Star Valley Osteopathy is in Afton, Wyoming. It's at 47 Doc Perks Lane. Not that it means anything to anybody in Mobile.
Yeah.
But I literally have one room that I rent from a physical therapist.
Okay. With
my table and my other stuff that I do there.
Sure.
And they just visit my website, and on there is book an appointment. You push the button and you're going to see my calendar.
Right.
You choose, you register, you choose what works for you. You fill out all your information.
Right.
And then I see you when you come in.
So when they come in, they actually see you. I mean, that's fantastic. What most people want is they want especially when they have a problem, they want access to the physician, and so you're saying there's direct access.
Yeah, I come out, grab them from the waiting room, bring them back. We sit in my room. The first appointment's anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. It's all with me.
Sure.
We go over your medical history. What's ailing you,
right?
And it's just hands-on. It's my table. I have some other stuff that I could use,
sure,
to help with the manipulation, and it is just one-on-one for the entire time
and direct. That's
very,
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to make sure that we have and those of you watching this on social media, you see all the links that we have posted. Of course, with my audio, your podcast, that we have the links there of how to get in touch with Dr. Langevin. And I don't want to offer this without asking you first, but if you had somebody that's not located in your area, would you mind fielding a call or have somebody, if they're okay with somebody reach out to you if they've got a question?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do. I actually do all the time because I do Facebook ads.
Oh, great.
And so I'll get somebody from Texas. Hey, I like this. What do I have around me? And so I'll kind of help them find what they need to find. But yeah,
great.
They can go to my website. They can use the contact link, which sends me an email.
Sure.
Or my cell phone number is on there.
Oh, great. Great. Fantastic. Wonderful. Wonderful. Listen, this is the first time we've had you on the show. I'm probably going to have you come back on to talk about some when we run into different conditions and what have you, and problems that we see, and especially when our listeners contact us about particular issues. Would you mind coming back on to deal with some of those?
I would love to do that. That'd be great. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you being on the show, and I look forward to having you on again.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Listen, everybody. If there's many ways to approach any problem, especially any physical problem. And as I've said many times, there's a myriad of health professionals out there. When you've got a nutrition concern, hey, that's why we have dietitians. When you've got an exercise concern, that's why we have exercise physiologists. When you've got a excuse me, you've got an eye problem, that's why we have ophthalmologists. And this is yet another way of approaching problems in your body, especially working with the fact that the body can heal itself. And again, as you heard Dr. Langevin say, driving that idea down that home about the fact that, we deteriorate ourselves, our bodies don't automatically deteriorate. And bringing professionals on to talk to us about that is just one more way we help you live your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.